morning, everyone. Lovely to see so many familiar faces from our customers. So it's great to see you all. Before I get started on making it easy to get stuff done, just quick show of hands. Who remembers Clippy? Oh, a few. Think about it. It looks like you're trying to write a letter. What does that say to you? It's a bit AI, isn't it? It's reading what you're doing. So we're going to talk about stuff that we've almost touched on before in many respects. And I'm going to introduce Peter here, who's going to be our subject matter expert and very good at what he does. Of course, as Oliver mentioned, I think I've just gone backwards, actually. Yes, I have. Training on that one. Peter's going to talk us through the modern workplace journey. And I think it's fair to say that the 2015 mark was a fair point, wasn't it, in terms of that line in the sand of where we really started seeing the advent of the move to the cloud. So, Peter, if you'd like to talk us through this, there's some key areas, isn't there, that would
absolutely. Yeah. So the reason why 2015 is such a pinnacle moment in the modern workplace journey is because that's the tipping point of when Microsoft, the biggest cloud solution provider kind of for the modern workplace, kind of brought in the model we all know today is subscription pricing. So we were all kind of used to paying for subscriptions for our telephony, our insurance purposes, and various other different things. And that's when they brought it into to your productivity applications. And everyone was like, whoa, I normally pay for Office 2015 or whatever, and up front, and then that's everyone licensed. And then they brought in this pay per user per month model, and everyone was like, whoa, what's going on here? But that's whenever the cloud was born effectively from Microsoft. And this is when you can see here this journey of when the start that many businesses faced of adopting new challenges and new ways of working, such as migrating your email to the cloud, starting to back up and archive, which a lot of people didn't realize that Microsoft didn't back up your data. And everyone's like, okay. Then we started looking at, phishing and ransomware became more and more apparent, endpoint configuration and response, third-party app protection policies, all the apps that you connect to your environment. How are you protecting them? How are you limiting them to what they access in your environment? How can you trust these applications? Then we kind of go into migrating your service to the cloud, data governance and GDPR. So the data governance piece is quite important because it's one of the things we'll talk about in a bit, which has a real kind of focus point when it comes to AI. Then we kind of go into cloud telephony and recording. Now, obviously, the PSTN switch off has been one of the main drivers of why organizations are moving to cloud telephony, which has been delayed again. I think it's the second time.
Yep.
And then we move into digital signature software. This one is probably one of my most favorite ones out of most of these at the moment because I bought my first home back in 2021, and the conveyancer that I used basically sent me an email, wasn't, secure. It was just literally a Word document that I had to sign. And it really got me thinking, like, wow, this company here is not utilizing the most important pieces of technology to secure the mortgage application and even the deeds to my house. They just sent it over email. There was no kind of secure box to go and download it. So if my email was ever hacked, the deeds to my house are on my email. So this is something that really, this whole digital signature software piece is quite important, because if you're signing important documents all the time and whatnot, it always makes sure that that digital signature is saved in the cloud separately in a different system so that they cannot be impersonated. Then we kind of come into the early 2020, which is your COVID and your pandemic, when meeting room and solutions, virtual appointments and bookings became the norm, where people were finding, remote working solution spaces rather than, their offices. And then you're coming into data analytics and reporting, where more and more data is being absorbed by a business. And then we kind of go into the prevention policies and controls. And this one is quite an interesting one. Does everyone remember the PSNI hack that happened only a few years ago? I say hack, it really wasn't a hack. It was a misunderstanding when it came to the data sharing policy that they had internally, where they accidentally created a link so that anybody could open this document that contained all the names, addresses, locations of every single police service of Northern Ireland officer's location, everything. And it was available for a couple of hours, and then they discovered that it was, and they took it down. But that was down to data loss prevention policy. They had no data loss prevention policy on the document so that anybody could open it. And obviously a lot of these police officers had to go and relocate for their family safety. But it was quite an interesting one. And then as we start into 2023 and into 2024, this is when we're kind of going into AI and whatnot. But the funny thing is, AI started in the 50s. Does anybody want to hedge a bet on when AI was first started in terms of who was it and what was it they were trying to do with AI? Does anyone want to hedge a bet?
Government.
Nope. Well, kind of. It's kind of. Military, yes. Any ideas? Anyone heard of Alan Turing?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. The machine that he built was the first artificial intelligence machine to try and decode Enigma, which is how we won the World War II. So in terms of that, this is when AI started. Now, AI is not something that's new. It's been around for a long time, as I said. I think one of the big tipping points for everyone getting involved in AI was then we all had our phones with predictive text. That's powered by AI. The Genius kind of feature within Apple Music, where it predicts the next music song that it wants to give you. That's AI as well. But everyone started to talk about AI in the business world more so whenever ChatGPT and Microsoft came out randomly at the same time, March 2023, and just basically said, we've got an AI tool that's going to support you and support your business. And this is the next era. So this was kind of whenever it started talking. And this is whenever Copilot came out at the beginning of this year, officially to the general public. And we'll talk about that in a bit more details. But I just want to gauge a bit of an interest in terms of hands up who's got Copilot in their organization at the moment, or who's using Microsoft 365 Copilot. 7, 8, okay. And then who's using other forms of AI like ChatGPT, Gemini, or Claude? Okay, there's a few more of you, yeah? So it's quite interesting because those pieces of technology you'll typically find there's free versions of them, whereas Copilot, there is a free one, but the big one that everyone's talking about is the paid for one, which we'll go into a bit more detail later. If you don't mind as well, if you find this slide useful, please take out your phones and take a picture of it, because I personally would say that when you're looking at this journey, I would say there's at least 3 or 4 things in this slide here that you have not implemented in your business completely. So whether it would be device enrollment and lifecycle management, email signature templating is quite an interesting one, where if somebody, if you'll typically find different employees will have different email signatures compared to the next person, and they'll always have different one, or they'll have an out-of-date one. And then one of the things as well, which is quite interesting, is the Cyber Essentials and NIST compliance. So Cyber Essentials is kind of the norm in the UK, but NIST is starting to become a bit more important when it comes to the modern workplace for the EU data laws that are coming into force. But yeah.
Yeah, so of course, AI generates that thing. It's like your brain starts going, what is it? What do I have to do? And we have these conversations all the time with customers, because ultimately it's all about data. Right, and we find that these are some of the key FAQs. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to pick to see if anyone wants to choose a question. So I'm Simon, I know you very well. Pick a question for me that might be more relevant for you.
And we got over here that we don't believe because it can say hours per week in lost productivity coming back.
Okay, so how do we believe the figures that it can save hours per week? Sorry, I got the sun shining.
Yeah.
In lost productivity, how can we fact check the return on investment effectively of time?
Yeah.
Is that what we're saying?
No, that's a relatively easy, simple one. So Microsoft has a tool that is available with all 365 subscriptions called Viva Insights. Now, until about 2 months ago, it was a paid for thing to get the Copilot dashboard insights. It's now free. So as long as you have at least 10 seats or more, you can get insights on how well your employees are using Copilot. And it will even tell you the aggregated amount of minutes that they've spent summarizing an email with Copilot, drafting an email with Copilot, drafting a document with Copilot, having Copilot answer a question, and it will give you a result of per app, how many times have they interacted with Copilot, and then it will give you an aggregated figure in terms of how much time would it have saved them. Now, the biggest area that you can find the productivity thing is that you can actually compare Copilot users to non-Copilot users in the environment. So if you are licensing maybe the marketing team, for example, let's say there's 5 people in marketing and you've gave 2 of them Copilot, you give them all the same task, you can very quickly see the return on investment by going, these 2 people have got 80% of that task completed versus the ones that have just started with no artificial intelligence supporting tools. Now that one can be quite a difficult one to kind of look at in terms of, everyone works differently. Some people are maybe higher skilled than others and things like that, but it does give you a very good baseline in terms of where you can find it. But just to finish on that, the two biggest important areas of where you can see the return on investment of Copilot is where if you license marketing and finance. Now the reason why it's marketing and finance, we were talking about this last week, it's because those are the types of departments that have tasks that, what's the best way to explain it? They kind of...
A lot of work for a single outcome.
Yeah,
I think,
a lot of work for a single outcome. Yeah, perfect. Yeah. So you'll typically find they'll spend months and months and months articulating the campaign for the marketing element. And then it's just for one key day or key event or key week. And then the same goes for finance. They could be spending days looking through invoices that they've received from clients and products and whatnot, all just to pay an invoice. Whenever you can use AI tools to get through 80% of that task. And the reason why I say 80% is AI is not going to do everything for you. AI is still in its infancy, in terms of supporting where we are as humans. And it will not completely do a task accurately as a human would do. We all know that. We have all experienced AI. Who's got Alexa at home? How many times you have to repeat yourself because it didn't hear you? Exactly. So when we're using AI, think of it as it's not going to do your jobs for you, but it's going to get you 80% of the way, and then you do the last 20%.
I think it's a good point because I sort of frame it in terms of it's like driving a car. You can get the car, but unless you actually learn how to work a clutch, a brake, an accelerator, back in the days, a choke and a gearbox and all those sort of things, you can't drive it. And a lot of what we find with Copilot specifically, it's about how you prompt, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you can't just open up a Copilot thing and say, oh, build me a Word document that tells me everything I need to know about this. You need to give it a bit more context, don't you? A bit more background in terms of what you're trying to achieve. And so there's actually courses from Microsoft that will enable you to learn how to prompt. It's funny, it's almost like going back to school and learning how to talk to someone in a very simple, no, you don't do that, you do this, I want you to go to the shop. And it's really sort of that sort of basic thought process. It can't read sort of that natural thing, say, oh, just put this image in there and do that. It won't do that, you have to be very accurate. One thing I did on it, for instance, was as a test, I created a fake business called Everyone's Scooters. And so I generated a logo from Copilot images and it brought me a logo. I then asked it to create me a business plan based on I want to sell this many things, and it created me a Word document. I then said, right, create me a list of fake customers in Excel with fake postcodes, phone numbers and models. And it started off building all this stuff, which was really good. And then I said, build me a corporate presentation in PowerPoint. And it pulled it all in. So if you know how to prompt and you've got the data in the background, because this is the key thing, which I think is the next question, you can do it. It's just learning how to drive it. So this one, I think, is key in that respect. I don't want employees to find data that's sensitive to the business. And how can we stop Copilot from sharing too much? Because depending on how you got your data, it could blow you up, couldn't it?
Yeah, this is the number one reason why businesses have not adopted Copilot at the moment. And it's a very interesting one. And it can actually be solved within about 5 minutes. So Microsoft brought out a tool recently called SharePoint Restricted Search. Has anyone heard of that? No? So it has to be delivered by an IT company. It is a PowerShell script that basically you put into SharePoint, which is where everyone collaborates and everyone shares their data and creates files and folders. And you basically say to SharePoint, all these SharePoint sites are off limits for search capabilities, which is what Copilot uses for searching, which is the Microsoft syntax. So what will happen here is you can just turn around and go, right, Copilot and search capability is turned off on all these SharePoint sites that contain our most sensitive company data, HR, customer lists, secret products that we're bringing to market in 2 or 3 years' time. You can say search capability is turned off. Now, not only will that stop Copilot from returning results within those SharePoint sites, it'll also stop other employees just going onto SharePoint or going into Microsoft Delve and searching for code names or product names that are related in those sites. So it's a great way of just going, let's just restrict everything right now so that people can't accidentally find stuff, because you don't even need Copilot right now to find stuff accidentally. Yeah. And restricted search is one of the great ways of doing it. And then it gives you your pathway to go, right, now we've turned off search capabilities within those very highly sensitive sites. Let's work with our IT provider to go, let's work on a per document or per file permission or something, or per folder permission policy. And then you can work over the coming 30, 60, 90 days to work on a plan to work on the files and folders that actually need addressing.
That's it. And it's, as you say, it's that quick thing to enable it to remove those permissions straight away. But ultimately, the majority of the work is done on getting into your files and getting into your head, the security layers that you want to put on there. We can come to that later. I always give a good example when I'm demonstrating Copilot, is that I have an Excel sheet just shoved in SharePoint with no permissions on it at all, with some fake staff salaries for my imaginary business. And in Copilot, I say, show me how much people are earning in the business. And it goes off and it pulls back this spreadsheet. And everyone goes, wow! So you've got to make sure that you get this stuff really sort of bob on. Yeah. Anyone want to pick another question? Lynette, anything for you in particular?
I'm really concerned about the security.
The security stuff.
Yeah, if I understand the pretty built from everybody seeing the ration red and that.
I think for your business as well, you've got a lot of IP. Yeah, you've got a lot of IP, haven't you? Mm-hmm. I think for knowing your business and really for how it works, I think one that might be really relevant for you would be the training, because knowing your business, I mean, it's very much about, you like adopting newer technology and you are a very forward-thinking company, but I think it touches on the adoption piece, doesn't it, in relation to this? And maybe if you can give us a few insights around the best ways to adopt and learn how to use these.
Yeah. So in terms of the side of things of, concerns around, the security of AI and whatnot, AI absolutely does pull information from various different sources. Now, when you think of, Gemini and Claude and ChatGPT, they are connected to the internet. They are, searching from everything that it can possibly get its answer on. With Copilot, you do have that ability, but it also has the ability to search internally. But think of Copilot as a containerized version of your own AI. So every single business has their own containerized version of artificial intelligence. It does not share anything outside that bubble. Okay, when you're using Copilot, that's why you're paying for it. Okay, because it doesn't share any of the data of your business or what you're searching for externally. Okay, Microsoft created effectively a very basic model of AI, and it gets better the longer and the more employees in your organization is using it. Now, when it comes to the adoption side of things, don't just think, oh, we need to give everyone AI. And don't just think, oh, let's just give it to the IT or the CEO, because you really need to see what kind of business case can Copilot solve or can AI solve in my business? And when it comes to adopting it, the best way to look at it, and we were talking about this again last week, is you can actually find out either through the firewalls with your IT provider, or you can find out using Cloud App Discovery. You can see if people in your organization are already using AI. So if they're using other websites and stuff to get information from, try and pick apart those people and go, actually, this person's going onto this website 4 or 5 times a day, for ChatGPT. Maybe they're becoming quite savvy with it. And these are the people that you should be putting onto your early adopters list for Copilot. So that, because they've already got an experience of using artificial intelligence. But the other thing is Microsoft has some courses, like the 4007, which talks you around how to adopt Copilot and how to adopt AI. But the biggest piece of advice I'd give you is, if you're going in and you're wanting to start to dabble in AI and you haven't even done it yet, or if you've just been using third-party ones and you want to dabble with Microsoft, log in to copilot.microsoft.com. If you log in with your business email address and your Entra ID, you create your own instance of Copilot, so it doesn't share anything that's business related. If you're logging into ChatGPT and all these other ones, if you share a screenshot or a table or a spreadsheet, it's learning from that to help other AI models around the world. Whereas if you're logged in to copilot.microsoft.com and you're interacting with it, it doesn't share that, okay? It containerizes it within your business. So the important thing is to ensure that if people are using AI in the business, try and get them to use Copilot instead. The one piece of advice in terms of speaking to AI, which we briefly touched on earlier, is the GCSE framework. Now, this is not going back to school. This is a completely separate acronym. Microsoft loves its acronyms. The GCSE framework is effectively the goal, the context, the source, and the expectation. If you're speaking to AI, these are the 4 key things you always need to ensure that you have in your prompt. Give it a goal in mind. Give it the context of why you're asking this question. Tell it where to look for the source material. Keep it to files and folders or look on this website. And then give it the expectation of how you want it to present back to you in a table, bullet point, paragraph, short paragraph, long paragraph, very highly detailed. A prime example of a really good way of this is I was in a meeting a couple of months ago, and I was in the kitchen working from home, and my little boy, who's 5, came in. And while I was in this meeting, I put myself on mute and said, "Hey, Ben, can you go get me my bottle of water in the living room?" And it took him about 5 minutes. And he came back and he said, "I can't find it. I can't find it, Daddy." I was like, "Right." I said, "Give me a second, everyone." I went into the living room and got my bottle of water. And it really made me think of, I didn't really give him the GCSE framework. What I should have said was, "Hey, Ben, can you go into the living room, and on the bookshelf, the second shelf up, can you go get me my bottle of water and bring it into the kitchen and set it next to me because I'm thirsty?" He probably would have understood that better because he would have known where to look and why I needed it and where to put it when he got it.
Just to confirm, Ben is not a robot, okay?
Yes.
It's not AI.
But yeah, he's 5 years old, and when you're speaking to artificial intelligence, treat it like it doesn't fully understand treat it like it doesn't know anything about your business. Treat it like you're speaking to it the first time, or it's an intern coming in and you're asking an intern to go and do something for you. As long as you give it enough information, the longer the prompt, the better the experience and outcome. It's the same goes, whenever you're asking Alexa or Google to do something, it's the reason why car voice assistants are terrible. It's because it's very short, sweet. Get me this answer.
Definitely.
Whereas if you give it the reason and the context, it will definitely produce a much better output.
How are we doing time, Jay? Yep. So we're going to move into our key takeaways. So I think you mentioned really internal survey, and sometimes the hidden gems in your business are the people that you may not think of who have got ideas around how AI could be used. And you don't ask, you don't know, do you? So survey your internal people. Ask them, if we had a solution that can help you with AI, what do you think you could use it for? You might get some utter dross back, but you might just get a couple of those key little golden nuggets that will really help. As Peter said, try using Copilot in Edge. It is free. It's self-contained within your organization, so you're not sort of letting your data go out into chat GPT and letting other people use it. Give that a go. If you ever need any help on trying to find that, we've got a nice QR code there that we can help you with. The key part about finding out who is using it now is also very important, because not only one, like we say, you've got that data going out of the business into these sort of free-to-use engines, but they are going to be your key potentials of that adoption piece. They will really, again, help you understand what are you using it for? How has it helped you? Because one thing that I think we've come across with every customer is that it's the use case which is the really tricky bit. And if you've got people that have found them, great, they're golden. And then finally, of course, book a consult. Myself and my team, we can show you Copilot in action. We can show you what it can and can't do. We can give you a sort of real sort of world tour, and of course, get you ready for an AI readiness assessment in that respect, showing you what data you've got and how we can actually help move you on to the next stage. So that's us. Again, the QR code's there. And we're going to hand over to Paul and John now, aren't we?
Cool.
Good stuff.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Cheers.